And as you know, the Kurds have been loyal allies to the United States for decades. You're fighting dictatorship in Iraq, we're fighting terrorism in the region, and recently President Masoud Barzani worked closely with the US Special Envoy to Syria to help find a peaceful solution to the conflict there. How do you see the future of the strategic relationship between the Kurdistan and the United States of America?
Well, look, let me be brief here because we're here to focus on the fact that way too many people are defrauding the American population. But, you know, we have a great relationship with the Kurds. The president loves the Kurds. I know that the entire administration, we've had great contacts and great friendships with the people, the Kurdish people in various countries all over the world. And look, our attitude is we want those people to be able to live in peace and harmony and prosperity with their neighbors. We've pursued a foreign policy of peace in part because we want the Kurdish people, but also the Arab people who live there, the Jewish people who live there, the Christians. We want everybody to be able to live in peace. And that has been the main focus of our policy in Syria. It's been the main focus of our policy really all over the world. Ma'am? Yeah. No, let's, thank you.
How do you intend to make sure that the consequences of ending these fraud programs in Minnesota don't impact the people who are enrolled in Medicaid? And at a bigger picture, how do you think that the polls show that Democrats historically have the advantage on healthcare? Do you think that these efforts on fraud might change that for Republicans?
You know, I'm not really worried about the politics. I'm worried about the justice of it all. I think it's offensive that American taxpayers pay into these programs and they are defrauded. And I think in some ways, more significantly than that, it's really sad that American children who need these services aren't able to get them because it's going to fraudsters instead of somebody else. So here's what I think. I mean, look, we're certainly going to make sure that our anti-fraud efforts go after the fraudsters and not after anybody who actually benefits from these services. But I actually think the question is a little off in a way, because the problem is not going after the fraud. The problem is the fact that these programs are being defrauded to begin with. They will not exist. Our social safety net will disappear unless we take fraud more seriously. So what I'm most worried about is that unless we preserve these programs for the next generation, they're going to disappear and all the money is going to go to fraudsters. Go ahead.
You're mentioning a lot about justice of it all. So what exactly would that look like? Dr. Ross mentioned that jail sentences aren't necessarily the right way to go, but is there a way of tossing this money back? Ways to get refunds? Predictions on that, and then add follow-up questions.
Yeah, I mean, look, there are certainly ways to claw some of the money back. It depends on the circumstances of the case. When you're talking about hundreds of billions of dollars potentially in fraud, that's a big universe of cases. There are different ways of anticipating it. You know, you heard Dr. Oz say some of these people, they will commit a crime and then leave the country. Obviously, we're not going to prosecute people who aren't even in the United States anymore. But I really do think that criminal penalties for some of these fraud cases have to happen. We have to make sure that we stop the fraud being committed against the American people. And if you violate the law in the process of defrauding American citizens, you ought to face the full consequences of the law.
And then on that, you said a few weeks ago that there would be a new Assistant Attorney General position to advance this effort. Can you give me an update on the timeline for when we might see a name announced, when you want the Senate to start working on confirmation on that?
Yeah, so I believe we have the name announced. I would say that Colin is on the Hill maybe today or yesterday. Colin will be the new AAG to help us combat fraud. I believe he's had great meetings all over the Hill today as part of the Senate confirmation process. I think he's impressed a lot of people. He's certainly impressed me. And again, we have a whole of government approach. I mean, what Dr. Oz is doing at CMS is very, very hard work, but it's not the only thing. We're trying to buttress it with a whole of government approach. Scott Bassett at Treasury is going to work on this. We're going to have our great Department of Justice work on this. We want to take this seriously because it's a serious problem for the American people, and so we got to fix it. Go ahead.
Will the way that you're handling fraud in Minnesota by withholding this Medicaid reimbursement serve as a playbook for how you'll handle it in other states, or are there other tools that you'll be using that you'd like to preview?
Well, I think it can, certainly. There are certain things that we're doing in Minneapolis and Minnesota that we're not going to be able to do in other parts of the country because the fraud is going to be different in each place. But yeah, I think this basic model of saying to people, hey, you get a massive amount of money to provide a service to people. Did you actually provide that service? The fact that it's even controversial that we're asking these questions as a government goes to show how much the culture of fraud has permeated Washington, D.C. Think about this.